Okay. Hello. Welcome. Well, hello everyone.
Hello.
We are seeing that you are entering little by little to the webinar. You can talk with us through the chat. I will do it. Well, we are going to wait for a few minutes while everyone join the webinar.
Okay.
It's a big silence.
It's a cold. It's really cold here in Argentina, so pardon me if I drink a little of mate, but indeed I need to warm myself.
Cheers.
Cheers to you.
Well, we are all in Argentina, the speakers, Pablo, Santi, Shiana, and me, but in different places. Where are you from? Anton, Carlos, Cecilia, Federico, another Federico, Luján, Gonzalo, Pilar, Sergio. Bariloche, okay, this is in the south of Argentina. Very cold. Okay, nice. Belarus. I don't know how to pronounce it, so you can help me. Okay, Peru. Okay, thank you. Okay, great. Well, I think that maybe we can wait like for 3 minutes and we start.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Well. Okay, welcome the new ones. We are waiting for the rest of the attendees. Well, people from other parts of Argentina probably have met this mate drink if you work with Argentinian people in your projects. And as it's 12 before lunch and it's still the morning, we used to drink mate in this moment of the day.
Yeah, mate time. Yeah.
Mate time. Exactly. Okay. Well, are we ready to start? Santi, Pablo?
Yeah, I think we are.
Good.
Okay.
Good to go.
Well,
sorry
great.
if you hear a little background noise. My dog is scratching the door. So if you heard that,
say hello. No, it's fine. I don't hear the extra sounds. So
okay, cool.
I think that it's the same for everyone. Okay, well, hello everyone. Welcome again to this digital sobriety talk where we are going to talk about the digital carbon footprint, and also we are going to learn about how we can reduce the digital carbon footprint. So I'm sorry, wait a minute. So well, we organized this this talk as the first of a lot of actions and sessions and different activities that we are going to be organizing. And so this is our first step, and what we try to do here is to start the discussion. And so, well, let's start. Did you know that 4% of the carbon dioxide emissions that causes global warming are generated by the digital ecosystem? Well, maybe this number, okay, I saw the chat, and maybe that number looks like a little bit small, but if we consider that it's slightly higher than the global emissions from the aviation industry, well, it sounds more alarming. And it's even more alarming if we consider that the digitalization of our lives, it's growing exponentially and very fast. So that 4% probably will probably grow in the next years, and it really represents an alarm. So as we all work in a digital company, and we work all the time digitally, and we also work with projects that involves the providing and creating digital products and services, we are really involved in the generation of those CO2 emissions. So even though this streaming video conference, it's generating those emissions. So this is not about turning it off. So if not, we couldn't have this talk. But it's not about leaving doing things in the digital world, but it's more about to be aware about the situation and learn about how we can do something about that. So if we are so involved in the digital world and working with digital projects, we have a more protagonism in doing something. We can do more. So that's the reason why we are all here. So, but this is my intro to this talk, and the experts are here, Pablo and Santi. They are our specialists, and they are going to tell us a lot about digital sobriety. So first of all, let's welcome them and introduce them. Pablo, Santi, hello. Please tell us about you. We want to know you.
Hi.
Sure. Yeah, go Pablo. Go Pablo.
Okay. Sorry, maybe you have a little late. So hi, welcome. My name is Pablo Bugani. I'm located in La Plata, Argentina. It's a small town near Buenos Aires. If you know Buenos Aires, it's very, very close. It's a small town, really cool now. I'm a visual designer. I've been working at Globant for almost 11 years now as a visual designer. And now I'm working on a different projects and in different initiatives related with digital sobriety and sustainable design.
So I will go. My name is Santi Fontana Rosa. I'm based also in Argentina. City is called Rosario, near Buenos Aires. Been in Globant for almost 12 years so far, and have been in several roles, but since last year, I have been more focused on green IT and everything related between the intersection in technology and sustainability. So, and we are going to talk a little more about this concept of digital sobriety going forward.
Okay, great. Nice to meet you. Well, so let's start with the first question. What is digital sobriety and why is so important?
That's a good question. Let me share something before. So there we go. So basically, digital sobriety. Digital sobriety is an approach that consists in design linear digital services and curbing everyday digital use. So it sounds nice. What does it really mean? It was first mentioned from a group from France, a think tank that is called the Shift Project, and they start thinking about what is the impact of technology on the environment. So we know about the impact of I don't know, a car, factory, everything. But what about technology? Technology is not visible. So they start thinking about this, what happened, or how we can avoid these kind of issues. So we may think about while we're talking about this, because since the pandemic, more and more people start focusing on digitalization and digital transformation. And so we are seeing a increasing change on the way we are doing things going forward. So I'm going to go more deep as we move forward, but about digital sobriety in particular, we have to find in mind that we have 4 pillars: experience, code, data, and infra. You can see my screen there. And the idea behind this is that for each of these areas that are related to any digital service, infrastructure, or product or software, we can think about techniques, how we can curb this impact on the environment. And we are going to see more details as we move forward. So don't forget about posting questions along the way as we are speaking about this.
Okay, great. Well, very interesting. I forgot to tell you something before. We are going to have a Q&A space at the end, by the end of this talk. So, but you can start writing your questions in the chat option so that we can answer them by the end of the talk. Okay. So there are 4 dimensions that involved in the digital sobriety philosophy. Code, experience, data, and infrastructure. It's a difficult word to pronounce in English. Yeah. Sorry for that. So I think that the first time that I met this concept about digital sobriety, my first question was, okay, so how we know how much a website it's polluting, for example?
Yeah, that's a very good one. I mean, as I said before, when we see a car, we will see an airplane, we will see a factory, we see the smoke being on the environment, right? But what about technology? So for technology, we try to find proxies, trying to understand how we can measure this impact. And for software or digital services, electricity is the main proxy for that. So if we can measure electricity, we can measure pollution. And how is that? So electricity is being generated, right? It's being generated from different means. It can be from, I don't know, solar, wind, coal, gas. So we can say that the more dirty that energy is being produced, so the most polluting way of producing energy, the more it's going to pollute on the environment, right? So we can state that the more energy we consume on a digital service, and that energy is not clean, we are going to pollute. And we might say, okay, if I go to clean energy all the way, I don't even have to care about software, right? Yes and no, we know that that's not going to happen in the short term. And I also like to use an example. Let's talk about cars. Everyone know about Tesla, right? Tesla is electric cars. They don't pollute in a way, right? At least compared to the standard cars. But what about if I have a Tesla in Germany, or I have a Tesla in, I don't know, Argentina or the United States? The energy matrix, the way the energy is generated and distributed is not the same for each country. So maybe in Germany, they have more clean ways to produce energy. So the use of that Tesla in Germany is going to be more cleaner than using the United States. You might say, yeah, no, okay, but this is just the idea, right? We have to take care about not only the way we produce energy, but what about how we consume that? And let me take another example, a more technical one. So let's say we have an e-commerce, right? I Google into the e-commerce and I start searching for products. So I get a list of products, right? That list needs to be generated on the backend. And the way to generate that list is basically look up all the detail, all the products that we want to show and produce that list. But there are different ways to look through that list. We can go one by one. We can go, Then we can go from, let's say, using a bubble search. We can use different kind of search, right? The more optimal the search is going to be, the less CPU are going to stress. The less CPU I stress, the less energy I consume. In a way, we can use that analogy to say, the more efficient I make my code run, the less I'm going to pollute. And try to bear with me in that concept, even though it's, let's say, I'm going to be very simplistic about it, but that's the main idea behind all of this we are going to talk going forward.
Wow. Thank you, Santi. A lot of information. Well, let's go on with the other dimensions. We have experience, and in that text, I can read design. So what about that? Pablo, you are the expert in design area. So,
Okay, yeah, expert, it's a big word, but yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about my story and see if I can dimension and connect with all that that Sandy has been told. That it's a lot of information. But for started, for me, for example, I'm passionate about the sea, right? About the ocean. I like to go to the beach. I like to surf. Every time that I went there, it was like a really nice place. I always have fun, but they always felt very, very sad when I started to see a lot of pollution there on the beaches, mainly, for example, garbage or plastic. So this is something that started to really connect with me. And a few years ago, I started to look at things differently, right? And started to make several changes, personal changes, small changes, a little bit of my daily habits, like switching, I don't know, to another diet, or maybe, I don't know, try to minimize the use of plastic, that thing that really struggled me when I went to the beach. Try to reduce it, try to reuse it. I don't know, switching to bamboo products and all of that, that hippie stuff. So, and also in parallel, my girlfriend started to begin to do these changes herself, but also she is a industrial designer, so she started to study and enter the world of sustainable design in the industrial way, right? So that always fascinated me, because I started to see how the materials changes, how they maybe reduce energy, or making things more efficient, or how the user can use something more efficiently so they can reduce the use of energy, how can integrate eco-friendly material, etc., etc. So this was really fascinating for me, but also very frustrating because I couldn't make that same relationship with my profession on the graphic design, or specifically in the digital design, right? I couldn't see it. It's very easy and tangible to touch something that's plastic and something that it's made of bamboo or something like that. So long story short, I continue my my personal quest and search for me being more green, but in the workplace not so much. I couldn't find it really the vein to that. So my life goes on. A year ago, a co-worker here at Globant approached me and showed me something. She knows that I'm into that hippie stuff, and she said, "Okay, I think this article could really be interesting to you. So take a look and let me know your thoughts." It was an article about Planet-Centric Design, a new concept. I never heard it before, and when I started reading, really my mind just blown because it was everything I was looking for, right? All of these years, how can I be more sustainable, more green in the digital area and in the visual area? So, for example, us as user designers or user experience or web designers, always our main focus has been the user needs. And I think now we need to start bringing the environment and the planet into the discussion, right? Into the table. So Planet-Centric Design opens up this space for all of us to start seeing and starting to building things in a very unique and new way, right? So the way that we conceptualize our services, our designs, and all of that, it can really be changing. So the social aspect of the Planet-Centric Design cannot be undermined. So I think the social and the economic and the environmental aspects of the society need to be in link. So if we start designing products for maybe people that are not in very prominent countries like the United States, Europe, or even some places in South America, if you start thinking of that user that has maybe an older device or doesn't have really steady web connection, for example, we're starting to be more inclusive, right? So if we change our mindset and start to think about that potential user, we can start making products that are more accessible, and for that they maybe use less energy. As Santi said, if the energy is the big problem or the big issue here, how can we reduce it? How can we make a digital product that uses less data and less energy? So, for example, let's talk specifically about the design part, right? Because that's why I'm here. So how can we put this sustainable lens, right? I like to call it sustainable lens on the digital product or the digital solution. We have the ability to be to create products that will be used maybe for millions of people. So if we have that in mind, that dimension in mind, we can actually start making decisions to reduce the impact of the CO2 emissions of our products. So maybe our decisions are not that direct, for example, as the ones that my girlfriend make. Ours are more invisible, so we need to work on the invisible. As Santi said, we don't see the actual cloud of the internet. So, but the thing is, if not invisible, if not visible, doesn't mean that it's not there. So the CO2 is not visible and it's there. So how can we starting to think about that, change our mindset? So there's a 3 questions that I like to make myself when I'm starting to think about this. So For example, what are we building, right? What is the actual product? By using it, will people be helping or harming the environment, right? If it's not helping the environment, can we give the user a more greener way of do what the user wants to do, right? So for example, flying, I think, I don't know if you or Santi saw that example. Flying is a good example because we know that it contaminates and we will continue to maybe travel, but maybe we cannot control the fuel that the plane uses, but we can give the user different choices for him or he to choose maybe a greener route or a way for the flight has less impact on the environment, right? So my point is that we don't need to like reinvent the wheel here, right? Just we need to have some aspect in mind when we are thinking or making decisions about the experience and the design. So if we know that, for example, images and videos weight a lot, so maybe we can start rethink, okay, do I need this autoplay video on my home? Is it really value? Or this image adds any value to the storytelling, or it can be avoided, right? Or if this image is absolutely necessary for the user to understand my website or wherever, how can I make it more efficient, right? Should I start reducing it? Should I use, I don't know, black and white? Or how can I actually do that? So now I want to mention a very good example that we have been using a lot to demonstrate the good practice is the case of Volkswagen, right? Maybe later we can share the links so the guys can take a look at it. But the thing with Volkswagen is they trying to decarbonize all of the industry, right? So when they are thinking about this strategy, they always say, okay, can we also make our website carbon neutral? And how can we make it, right? So they starting to make some decisions and some good practice about optimization that we think they're really good. For example, the use of the font. They use only system fonts so they don't add any more weight on the website, right? They use, for example, a lot of dark mode. We know that the dark mode uses less energy because our screen, if it's black, they use less of pixels. So if we have the absence of light, we are polluting a little less. And also one of the more, I think, interesting or more intelligent solution they found is they didn't actually reduce the use of images. They use the axis art. So they took their images and they constructed in a way with fonts. So as the font weighs a little less than the pixel, they managed to create a very visual way of presenting image, a very original way, and they didn't have to like invent something new. They just have to look and be really creative. Okay, how can we reduce the use of the image? So I think it's taking me too long. So just to summarize, what what can
No,
this
sorry, it's fine. It's so interesting and it's okay.
okay, so I think, okay, this website, what can we take about this example, right? So a few points that I think they will be interesting for people to have in mind is, okay, choose fonts carefully. That's one point. Try to avoid the use of unnecessary images, and if you have to use images or maybe videos, try to be as efficient as possible with the use of the size, and also if you can get creative as Volkswagen did, go ahead. Also be careful about the use of color. Obviously, we know that dark mode is a little greener because we don't use that much energy, but also maybe have in mind that, for example, the blue, it's a color that consumes more energy than red and green, for example. So that's something that also to keep in mind and to start investigating in the way we choose imagery and colors and font. And the main I think point here is this is digital sobriety. I think that what we need to do is exactly that, to return to sobriety, but with elegance, right? We don't need to just remove everything just to remove it. We can create a very attractive, a very nice product, many modern product, but with that, keeping that concept in mind, that sustainable lens always present. And finally, I think that one of the things that is more essential also is to test all of our decisions to know if we are actually going in the right direction, right? But because something is theoretically, we need to test it, right? So I don't know. I think that's my biggest point for all of the present guys.
I'm sorry, I was mute. Thank you very much, Pablo. I think that, well, once again, a lot of information, interesting, and because it's like the different perspectives. I would like to know, this is a question to our audience here. What do you do in Globant? For example, I don't know, maybe when, for example, I'm a digital marketing strategist, for example. Pablo, is a BD, and well, what about you? Okay, delivery and operations. Well, it's interesting to know that, because each one of us has can do something from and also by knowing about the different perspectives and areas of influence, we also can consider that, right? So for example, I'm not going to design, I'm not going to develop or code, yeah, but I am going to work with developers, coders, designers, and well, and more people. Or maybe you are a product manager, and it's really important to know like the holistic knowledge about this digital sobriety strategy and actions and philosophy. So, well, I have a lot of questions in my mind, but wait for it. I remind you that you can add questions in the chat for our Q&A space by the end of the talk. And well, we have two more dimensions. Yes, the one that I can pronounce in a proper way, infrastructure, and also data. Okay, data. It's a very, very well-known word and very important for every business, data. Okay, so Santi, could you tell us more about the digital sobriety actions that we can do?
Yeah, for sure. We have seen an increase on the volume of data that is being stored. Many of this data is never going to be used at all, but now it's very cheap to save data, right? It's just one credit card away from us and one click. With the cloud also coming into play, having the infrastructure to deal with these kind of problems are very easy to set up. And who can blame admins to be playing on the safe side, right? They rather have 2 or 3 or 4 or maybe 100 servers just in case. Yes, because it's cheap. If you compare with the old days when you have a data center that you can have to buy from IBM, the blades, which costs a lot of money. And now you can just one click, you can create instances, right? But what is the downside about that? We don't care anymore about efficiency. We don't care anymore about that server that is going to be either there, it's consuming energy, right? But since we can pay for that, we don't even care. So for both of that scenarios with data and infra, what is important is to come back to efficiency. It's not just about being solving the problem, but solving with the less resources available and possible. And what is the most complex aspect of this scenario that we're talking about? There's no regulation nowadays that force companies like Amazon, Google, or Microsoft to disclose the amount of CO2 emitted by one instance. And since it's a virtual server, we cannot just plug in a power meter, which is a tool that measures energy, into their infrastructure, right? So how we can measure that? How we can determine the amount of energy that my application is consuming? And it's not just about determining that, it's about taking action, about making better decisions to be more efficient about that. And that's one of the problems we want to tackle going forward in this kind of practice. And also other problem that you may face is when you try to answer the question about, is my website greener or not? It's going to green, what it can do. And they would say, greener compared to what? The current situation that is want to be addressed is there's no enough information to have benchmarks about this, to have comparison that make difficult to make decisions around it. So we need tooling, we need standards, and we are working closely with many companies, like being part of the Green Software Foundation, trying to determine this kind of best practices. That's when digital sobriety came into play, which is one good step going forward. But as Pablo was mentioned, we need to start getting deeper on this and creating new way of thinking on how we deal with digital services and software and why we make this. And I'm not talking about programming. As I mentioned before, they're about the product, the design, the data. So I will take one last sample about data. We need to put in place, for example, policies about deleting the data after X amount of time. And how many projects that have in place? I would say not many. And that will have a huge impact on reducing the CO2 as we go forward.
Thank you, Santi. Well, he's Federico, who is a data architect. He's saying, I think the best way to reduce the footprint in my case is to suggest the zones to process the data with the lowest impact possible, and also tune the process to reduce the resources needed.
Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know if everyone is aware, but each cloud provider have different zones, right? Where the data center is located. It's not just about, we have been using the zones for CDNs or for reliability, about being the close to that geographically, but we can use that as well to determine if one of the zones have less load, we can move our jobs or workload to that zone, or even we can choose based on the energy matrix that we discussed before. For example, in the United States, California have more solar winds, solar energy than other part of the state. So we can choose, if it makes sense, going to a data center in California, even with Amazon or Google or whoever we choose, that either go into, I don't know, the East Coast. But again, it's not just one dimension. We cannot just choose or the implementation decisions based on this. This is another dimension. Even as we have the security dimension, as we have the quality engineering dimension, we also have to introduce sustainability as a new way to make decisions about how we generate and create digital services and products.
Wow, this is a good conclusion message. Well, okay. Well, here are more. Well, are you reading the chat, Sandy? We have Alan. Well, yeah. Julio.
Yeah, let me see. Maybe we can suggest a matrix for some guidance to reduce. Yeah, that's the way we are going, and we want to let me comment about some initiatives that are happening in Globant. So as I said before, we are part of the Green Software Foundation, which is an organization that we join with also Microsoft, GitHub, and many players in the industry about defining these guidelines for each of the pilots, right? How we can rethink the best practices that we want to apply. And obviously, from this kind of example we have been mentioned should be part of that. On top of that, Pablo and the team is already working on a training, and Pablo can talk about that, how we can introduce sustainability on design. And we are also creating a training for Globant across company to start introducing this concept of green IT in general and digital sobriety. It's not that everyone needs to be an expert on this. As I say, I always said, not everyone is an expert on security, but most of us know that we cannot show the password on a form, right? The same for this. We don't need to be an expert on, I don't know, digital sobriety, but at least if we have a checklist that we can apply on daily basis, like a cookbook, that will be a huge impact on this matter. And then there's another one I take two for one.
Yes.
It's about making the queries on a database being more optimal, or maybe changing the way we get data from servers. Instead of going every 2 seconds, I think this new data there, we can switch and say, you know what, let me know when they say the data there, because the amount of data we move around the wires, you can say over the net, it consumes energy as well. So these are the examples of techniques that have been around for a long time, and we need to rethink them and reapply through this new lens, as Paulo was mentioned, the sustainability lens.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Santi.
I think to add to what Santi said, I think it's very interesting to mention that, right? That maybe we don't have to come up with some crazy new solution. We just have to start rethinking things that we took for granted maybe a few years ago, because the internet grew a little way too fast, and all of our maybe our computers and smartphones, they are capable of a lot of amazing things. So maybe we took for granted some good practices on coding and also on design. So yeah, exactly, Fede, like Volkswagen, that's a really good example, because they didn't do anything crazy or anything new. They just reduce it in a very compact, in a very creative way. Also mentioning about the training that Santi mentioned, we are working on a training specifically for the design studio, but I think that maybe a little we can expand and give more information on across Globant. I think it's I like to make like a parallels between the sustainability lens that I like to call and for example accessibility, right? A few years ago nobody really cared about accessibility. The client didn't care. We maybe care a little bit, but okay, if we can use it, okay. Now we are actually have laws about accessibility and how the website need to pass this law to be able to be live. So I think that if we can create a concept, something similar about green IT or digital sobriety or sustainable design or whatever we want to call it, in parallel with accessibility, I think that that's already it's a win, right? If we can just check a few things, just like Santi says, maybe have an Excel on this and this and that, I think that will be really helpful for reducing the impact.
Great, fantastic, thank you. Well, we are arriving to the end of our talk, so I would like to ask you, Pablo and Santi, a last question that in some way is in context of what we are talking right now about, and also leave a few minutes for some questions that we have here, or if you have a new question to add there is a space for that. So we are working in a total digital company that we offer digital services and products. We work in projects where digital universe is totally involved. So that's incorporating, integrating a digital sobriety strategy and actions is challenging and sometimes could be also controversial, according also to our clients' needs. For example, we are working maybe with a digital transformation process in companies, and we are like, okay, but we want to apply digital sobriety there. So this is just an example. So what are your thoughts and feelings? What are you living? What are you feeling at the meantime that you are integrating this concept, these actions, this new this sustainable approach within the projects you are working with, or maybe also in your daily work life?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think that, as I mentioned before, when I started, for example, making my little habit changes, I think this is something similar. We need to take it step by step, a little by little. And I don't think that we are ready for like super big change. We need to keep focus on what we are actually capable of manage. For example, as Santi said, where are we located our host on and all of that, and for example, keep in mind all of the good practices, but we cannot force it. We cannot force it on ourselves or in the clients, right? You need to be aware of if your client is interested in something like sustainability, and maybe you can approach it with some services or maybe some ideas on how they can maybe be more efficient. You don't even have to mention sustainability. If you go there and say, okay, you're going to reduce the use of data if you apply this and this good practice, and if you try to, I don't know, if you go to dark mode, you're going to be more efficient or something like that. And maybe you don't even mention sustainability, and you are already being more sustainable. So you have to be smart in the way you approach your client, and even here at Globant, I think we already have something. For example, I think it's called my footprint, where Globant is measuring all of the digital CO2 that we are emitting. So that's a good thing. I think first of all, you need to be aware of what are you emitting. If you can measure that, then you can start reducing it and be smart on the way you reduce it. So I think that's my thoughts on that. Maybe Sandy can be a little more specific on on that part.
No, I can be so I can talk about, we have an internal initiative inside Globant X, which is called JORD. So we discussed previously about the challenges on determining the contamination, the pollution, right? So we are finishing our first MVP for a platform called JORD, which will allow to measure the energy consumption of digital services and products, and to disclose that and show, and also make recommendation on how to reduce that based on best practices. That's a way, or let's say, a way to contribute to this. I once read an example of one WordPress developer, right? He developed plugins for WordPress, and he said, yeah, I can recycle, I can compose, I can buy a bamboo toothbrush, but I can also make my code smaller. And so every time that is download that plugin, it consumes less energy and I have an impact. He made the math, and it was like, say, reducing 2 lines of code, 20K of JavaScript. It was around like 5 flights from New York to Amsterdam every month. So the analogy there, the important message there is, with very small changes, we can have huge impact because of the way the software is being used. So we believe that we have a responsibility, or maybe the opportunity, if you want to put it that way. So with that in mind, we start working on this platform, George, that's going to be released next month, happily. And that's the way we try to help in this matter, you know. That's the way from Globant we try to do our part in a way.
Great, thank you. Well, we have 7 minutes. So let's go to some questions that we have in the, okay, they were answered. Okay, great. So is there any question in the room? Well, I think that all this conversation and all you have shared with us, it's really interesting. As I said before, I work in digital marketing strategies, and for example, when we have to design a brand identity, a brand concept, also a content strategy. And I think that, for example, when if a company or a project has within its values, brand values, sustainability, there we have a place, a room to do something, for example, because they have that sustainability value, but maybe they don't know that they can do something through digital ecosystem. So from this point of view, I think that can happen in each area and each role involved in a project, right? So, and as you have already said, the thing is not that, okay, we have to run and say, okay, now if we are not doing something green in our projects, in our digital projects or digital daily actions, we feel like we are going against the environment, you know, and our planet, our life. So, but maybe we can do something specific at the very quickly, but we can start doing something. So, for example, that checklist, that questions that, for example, Pablo mentioned, like, okay, what in the moment that we are creating and designing or ideating our strategies, our roadmap with the product, our actions, we can ask ourselves, what are we doing according to digital sobriety? And then if we don't know what to do about, we can ask. So that is the reason why we were sharing, Shani was sharing in the chat a Google form where, well, you're invited to complete it. It's very quick and short. And what we are trying is to start to create a space to discuss, to brainstorm ideas, to ask questions, to share situations or experiences, so we can build all together this digital sobriety path to a better action and commitment to our planet, so to our life. So we are going to be doing different activities and actions. So we will send you emails. We are not going to spam you. We are going to communicate down the actions, activities, or talks like that, or when we create maybe a community's conversation Slack, so we can share and be in contact to help us and to help each other with this initiative. So here you have their names, Pablo Bugani, Santiago Fontana Rosa. You can contact them through email or Slack when you have a question, or if we can also, they can share a lot of resources from the sustainable design domain and from short project to help us to move forward in this digital sobriety journey. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So no, I was just wanting to mention that we are a growing community here on Globant regarding specifically for UX, visual and service design. If you want to join, we share lots of information. We don't actually have like the definitely solution. We are just searching each other. So if you're interested on going deeper and accept this challenge that we are presented and this opportunity, you're more than welcome to join us. So it's a growing community, so we will welcome you. Thank you for this opportunity also, Lu.
Thank you. Santi, well, we know that we have 2 more questions in the Q&A. Sorry, we didn't see them.
Which ones?
You can stay maybe just a few minutes so we can
no, not in the Q&A, but I see on the file. Let me see. There's something that is being done to communicate live to the user if it's an impact on the environment. I mean, this is a very wide question, very broad. So let's focus on what we are doing just in Globant as part of our job. There have been a survey that was done by the internal team to calculate our internal footprint. Also, Globant have achieved carbon neutrality, which is basically compensated all their emissions of their operation by 2021, and is in target to be carbon positive, which is we capture more CO2 than we produce to work. And the other initiative that we can be discussing with Pablo and myself, that part. So in the future, we believe, and also there are some other, like for example, Microsoft can release with their operating system, like a tool that allows you to show the energy consumption. So you can decide what action to cancel or not. So the short answer is there's something widely used for everyone, no, but we are just starting, right? This is a problem that start paying attention in the pandemic. So there's but there's hope.
Also, maybe on the user experience and visual design, we can give some hints to the user. For example, I know that Netflix, for example, if you're keep watching and watching, they stop and say, "Are you still watching?" That's something, maybe a little feedback, just to be sure that the user is there, is present, and that energy is not being wasted. So all with a little bit of feedback, a little bit of information to the user, we can communicate them that maybe they are wasting more energy that is more necessary to do the task. For example, on the flying part that we mentioned before, maybe we can give the user a greener way, a greener choose for them to have maybe a direct flight and not a one with different path. So that's something that's a little hints to the user that we can start implement. As we said before, we just have to keep our mind open and try to be creative and came up with solutions and with user journeys that are more efficient and efficient way for us to reduce that friction.
Right.
And that's another one, the last one. Do we have an estimation about the cost of do a sustainability digital product? It will increase or decrease in X amount of percentage. So it's not about the cost in a way that it costs more or less money or more or less time. It's let's say it's, do we want to implement sustainability as part of the methodology? So it's, in the past, quality, so to add quality teams to the development of the product was something that everyone was questioning. So it doesn't provide value. Nowadays, no one wants to release without having a quality team there. The same for the security. So for sustainability, it's not about this is more or less costly. It's about the goals that the client has. So that we have clients that have a strong commitment to reduce their sustainability, their emissions. So there's also investment funds that doesn't put money in startup that doesn't have a sustainability plan there. So for them, probably it's not a cost, it's an investment. So the reason I mentioned this is we don't need to treat this it costs more money. It's about it makes sense or not inside the context of the project.
Great. Well,
Good one.
do we have an extra question, or we are losing people? They probably are going for.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a good moment to arrive to our end. Well, thank you so much to everyone, to the speakers, to the audience, to everyone involved behind the scenes in the organization of this talk. So we are going to be in contact, in touch to go on talking about that and being involved in different activities on digital sobriety. So thank you so much. And well, have a nice rest of the day or night, maybe in wherever you are.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.